Treat today. Uh, Bob Burkle is with us to speak. Bob from EEM. Uh, Lanny, our normal, I don't know what, representative from EEM, I suppose you'd say, uh, had a, I think, a death in the family and had to be with family this week. So Bob got a call, I believe it was Thursday, and agreed to come and present to us for class and worship time. And you've got a little bit of biography there in your bulletin, so you can read about that. But we're glad to have you here, Bob. I'll let you speak.
Is that working? Yeah, that's working. Okay. All right. Again, thank you very much for allowing me to come here today. Lanny's wife's mother died, and she's out on the West Coast, and that happened Wednesday, and he had to go and be with the family, take Susie out there, and so he asked me to send his greetings and wishes he'd have an opportunity to be here today. So I'm your fill-in. I'm your substitute Lanny right now. So my function at EEM is I'm the president and CEO of Eastern European Mission, and I've been doing that for about 10 years. My background is I grew up in the church. I was baptized when I was 13 and had quite a number of jobs, been different places around. My first job was in Kansas and then Ohio, working with the Air Force. And in fact, one thing good about being at that particular job is I called up one of the elders, and I was single at the time, and I said, could you give me the name of all the eligible ladies in the church? And he said, yeah, I'll give you both names. And so I married one of them, and we had our 50th anniversary August 16th of this year. So I guess that's a benefit from coming to church, regularly. So one of the things I learned, one of the things I worked on there was what was called passive countermeasures. It was basically to allow U.S. Aircraft to penetrate Soviet airspace. And I was always interested in that and never could understand, even growing up as a child, why the Russians hate us, And it wasn't until I got over there and found out they don't hate us. Their governments might, but the people are just like you and me. We're ordinary people. I mean, they laugh and they cry and they eat and they love their kids and they like to have recreation, stuff like that. And it's the governments that get in the way. And so also I found out that they have a spiritual element as well. And so that didn't really hit me until I found out about Eastern European Mission in the late 90s and ended up going to Russia and Ukraine, places like that. And my background is not in ministry. I'm an engineer, electrical engineer, and business major as well in marketing. And so I had my own company. And so when we sold our company in around 2010, I was able to do some more different things outside business, and I just found that this to be really, really interesting because, here we have the Bible can penetrate into areas that we would think were impenetrable. And one thing I'll talk about in the lesson today is the key thing to understand is ordinary people can do extraordinary things, and so I've been able to do some extraordinary things, and growing up from a small, if you will, lower class family in Kentucky where we always ran out of money before we ran out of month, and how we made it, I don't know, but here we are today, and I just want to talk to you about that. So one of the things that we have with Eastern European Mission is a willingness for people to understand the spiritual kinds of things. And so back in 1961, 7 couples from Evelyn Christian College at the time, it's ACU now, decided to go and try to reach these people behind the Iron Curtain. And, most of us are of the age here that they understood what they meant. The Iron Curtain, you just couldn't penetrate, and it was a very, very difficult environment that if you were able to get in, you were tracked and lots of different things. But nevertheless, they decided they wanted to do that. And so that one of the easiest places to go was Vienna, Austria, and then from there they could go ahead and launch in. So they started to go into these territories and found out, and this shouldn't have been an aha moment, but how can you teach people the Bible and have them learn about God if they don't have a Bible in their own language? And so here they just went ahead and turned their entire mission around from trying to start churches to at least provide Bibles in order to be able to have people get that, and then train the people to be preachers and teachers as well. So what happened is a small starting of putting Bibles in, smuggling Bibles, had turned into now a large operation where we put over 2 million Bibles a year and into these former Soviet areas. One of the things, too, is when we talk about Bibles, we have more than just Bibles. So, for example, here you have your regular Bible. This is a Polish Bible, but our tagline is, the Bible, we want everyone to get it. And by that we mean we want to physically get it in your hands. When you read it, you get it into your mind. And when it goes to your mind, it goes to your heart, and then you want other people to get it as well. And sort of it's a continuous cycle to go with that. And it's sort of a play on words, too, that's how that works. The other thing, too, is we want people to get the Bible at all different ages. So, for example, this is a regular Bible that I can even still read as far as the print. But we also have large print Bibles that we distribute. This is a large print, and so, for example, if you're older or if you have vision issues, this is a much larger font, and it gives people opportunity to read the Bible. Also, as we went to younger kids, we found that it's important to engage people, children, when they're children. So we start out with Bible coloring books, and so this has a coloring book. It has the verse in English, because everyone knows that English is a universal language. If you want to do anything, you need to learn English. This is a Ukrainian coloring book, and so the words in Ukrainian. So all of a sudden, they start to hear about God's stories when they're very young. As they grow a little bit more, then what we have is a children's Bible storybook, because the Bible is based upon quite a number of stories, and so we have sort of the Bible stories here in with one kind of particular artwork and illustration, and this is what we call the Smiling Jesus Bible, where it's a little bit different. The kids like this one as well, but this was for kids like 4, 5, 6, 7 years of age when they're first starting to read. As they get older, then what we've done, and this is actually an English version here, it's called God's Message for You. We call this a teen Bible, and so we've went out and had the best illustrators that we could find in Eastern Europe go ahead and do the illustration, and then we actually took the Bible text and laid it into this as well. So the whole idea is to bring people along as far as what the Bible is and what it means. One of the previous presidents of EEM had his PhD in Eastern European thought and culture and things like that. He was a former commander of U.S. Navy, and he understood the Russian thought. And one thing that was brought up to us was the fact that they needed a newcomer's guide. So, for example, if you open up a Bible for the first time, especially the New Testament, and you see that you've got Matthew, and you read that, and that's interesting, and then Mark, and then Luke, and then John, you're like, why am I reading the same story 4 times? It doesn't make sense. And so this, excuse me, talks about themes. It talks about kings and battles. Excuse me, excuse me, kings and battles, and from Genesis to Revelation, about what the story of the Bible is. And it's not a Bible per se, but it helps people understand. And so we continue to try to develop materials for that, and we've put together what was called a Bible bundle, which has these materials that we provide, and it's available. Currently, we're in like 32 languages in 36 different countries to provide those materials. And so I guess the question you have to ask yourself here, think about your house. How many Bibles do you have in your house? I counted mine, I think like 24, 25. And the question you have to ask is, so which is the best Bible you have? And I would make the suggestion is it's the one that you open and read. Because if you don't open and read it, it's more than just, thank you, sir, it's more than just a dust collector that you clean off. And so that's very, very important, because one of the things we found that when we were in Eastern Europe is people didn't have Bibles because they'd been denied like 70 years in order to have a Bible. And if they did, a Bible was the cost of like 1 month's worth of wages. So do you want to eat or do you want to read the Bible? And so that's why our model is we give all our Bibles away free of charge. And the other thing we do too is we only do print. We don't do digital. And the reason we don't do digital is we go in areas where people don't have any money. They may not have electricity. They may not have water. They may not have internet. And even if they had a digital device, they probably couldn't even afford to buy it. It's different than here. It's just, think back in the 40s and 50s or early 60s, and that's the kind of environment that we deal in. And so we only do print, and that works out quite well for what we're doing. The other question sometimes when people say, well, what version do you use? You know, is it King James or American Standard or ESV? And we're like, none of the above. What we do is we go out to the Bible translation agencies, and we need to find people that have specialties in the Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic scripts and the current language that's being used today in whatever particular country. I mean, I don't know that, and none of our experts do. So we ask them what that is, and then we go ahead and ask the people at the churches, if there are churches established in the country, which is the most popular version. And then we go out and license that or try to get it for free of charge if it's possible. So let's go ahead and see if number 1 will show up. Aha. So our mission is, as I said, the Bible. We want everyone to get it. So this is the area that you see, you know, from Germany all the way to Russia. Do you know that Russia has 11 time zones? I mean, here in the U.S., we typically have 4, and if you can count Hawaii, then that's 5 time zones. But that's how gigantic Russia is. It's just huge. And then, you know, there's Ukraine, Poland, and other places like that. We do not go into Western Europe. And the reason we don't go to Western Europe is these people are rich, they have the Bible, and they could afford it if they want to. There's multiple translations. and excuse me, we just don't want to compete with them. So the other thing, too, is that if you look at these Bibles, and if you want to look at some of the versions, the things we have to deal with is, you know, we've got the different languages, and then we have the different fonts. Some in the Latin font, which is what we're used to, and some of them in Cyrillic, which maybe if you're in a fraternity or sorority, you'd understand that, but I just don't understand that particular language font. So it's very, very difficult to handle all that. So we have offices spread throughout this particular area. Our main office is in Vienna, and then we also have an office in St. Petersburg, Russia, in Kiev, which is temporarily relocated to Vienna because of the war. Excuse me, I'm sorry. We're in Athens, Greece. We're in Minsk, Belarus. We're in Almaty, Kazakhstan. We're in, excuse me, in Poland. We're in Romania. In fact, the person that used to run the Red Cross in Romania is the EEM Bible distributor, and he's been very, very successful. He's now doing that for us full time. We have also done Bibles and biblical literature in Arabic and Farsi and the Turkish language, even though we don't talk about that. Back when the Afghan refugees came in, that I got a request for 2,000 Farsi and 2,000 Arabic Bibles because the refugees were coming over and they were saying, I don't understand. I land in the island of Lesbos, which is in Greece. We are Muslim, and who greets us there? Well, it's not our Muslim brothers and sisters, it's Christians. And they clothe us and house us and feed us and give us medical, and they're loving on us, and we don't understand. You're our enemies, but why are you loving on us? And so they want to know, what do you have and how can we get that? So about 6 or 8 weeks after we put the first 2,000 Bibles in, the next request came in for 120,000 Bibles. And so we were able to do that back in the 16, 17 timeframe, if you remember that when we were here talking about that. Where we're moving into right now, excuse me, is an area called Central Asia, which is Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Armenia, and places like that I can't even find them on a map, okay, to be quite honest with you. But there's a lot of Muslim in their area there. Christianity is like 0.5%, and so it's a great area to expand in, and we're looking at that as well. Excuse me. So as we talked before, we have 36 countries we serve, 32 languages, and it's free to all. Last year and the year before, we delivered over 2 million Bibles. And to give you an idea, what does 2 million Bibles in biblical literature look like? Excuse me, is if you are at a bookshelf, like in a library, and you stack the books cover to cover, that'd be over 15 miles of books. And overall, we've probably done upwards of 15 to 20 million Bibles since we started the organization. It's huge and continue to grow. You know, from the time initially we were smuggling them in cars across the border, 10, 15, 100 at a time. In Croatia, we were invited to put Bibles and give Bibles to every child in the Croatian schools. So that was 1.2 million Bibles that we did. 9 tractor-trailer truckloads of Bibles just coming in for that alone. Once that happened, the Croatian people were talking to religious people in Macedonia, and they said, well, we want that. And so we ended up putting in 450,000 Bibles into Macedonia as well for the kids there. So what we've seen over the period of time is that in schools and orphanages and prisons and things like that, we've had quite a good penetration. This picture right here, incidentally, is a little girl. She's holding the children's Bible I told you about. She is the daughter of our distributor that lives in Belarus. And what happens is that the Belarusian government has actually threatened to take their kids and put them in an orphanage and put the parents in jail because they distribute Bibles. So currently, right now, they're living actually in Poland, right across the border, until things hopefully get better. And as I've shown before, Bibles, children's Bibles, New Testaments, coloring books, all kinds of things. The whole idea is we just want to make sure that people can get it, understand it, and then ultimately make a decision to follow Christ. That's the goal of all of us. We want them to be with us as well in heaven. So again, this is an interesting picture. This little girl, she's in school in Ukraine. And what's interesting about this is it's actually more than school. Before the war, EEM helped sponsor what was called a Bible Olympiad. And so they would actually have Bibles in public schools. Maybe I should back up to that story. In early 2000s, I was with EEM, and we were doing a lot of work in Donetsk, which is now part of Russia. They came in and invaded and took it over. And so myself and a couple other people from EEM went to the Minister of Education, and we said, we have an audacious proposal. And they said, what's that? And we said, we want to put Bibles in all your schools in this particular region, and perhaps, hopefully, the entire country. And the guy sort of sat back and thought about it and said, okay. And so, I raised my hand and said, can I ask you, why did you say okay? I mean, we're pleased, but why did... He says, well, you have to understand that as the Minister of Education in Ukraine, I'm responsible for the moral and spiritual education of these children. In the Soviet system, the state raises the child and puts the moral values in, not the parents. And so he said, so I looked at all the major religions, or at least 3 major religions that we see. We looked at Western Europe, which is secular humanism. That's no God. We reject that. He said, you've got to understand, to use American vernacular, Ukraine is the belt in the Bible buckle, in the Bible Belt, in that particular area. And I didn't even know they were religious, but they are religious and spiritual. And so they said the next thing we looked at is we looked at Islam. And as we looked and studied the material, we discovered they worship the God of hate. We reject that. So we looked at Christianity, and that's the God of love, and that's what we want, and that's why we want Bibles in all of our schools. And so our first distribution was to the Donetsk region, and we got that done in about 3 months. We got this phone call. It was like, we're like, is there a problem? He said, no, we're just really surprised you did what you said you were going to do, because a lot of Americans come over here and they kind of take pictures and promise a lot of things and never follow up, and you guys actually followed up. So from there, we moved to a number of regions, one in this, but it wasn't all contiguous. It was sort of spotted throughout the entire country. The country, Ukraine, incidentally, is about the size of Texas, okay, so it's a pretty big size. And so a few years later, a guy named Poroshenko gets in as president of Ukraine, and he is looking at what is going on there, and he calls in the minister of education for the entire country. He says, I don't understand this. He says, I look at this region, this and this and this region, and he said, why is it the test scores are up and discipline problems are down? He said, I can't figure any correlation. And he said, well, Mr. President, that's where we put Bibles in public schools. And the president said, well, why don't we do everywhere else? And so that's why we have 70 to 75% of the public schools in Ukraine have Bibles and biblical literature in there. And the kids, when we delivered it, we're results oriented. There are others that put Bibles in drawers and hotels, if you know what I mean. And we want to engage people that are actively looking for the Bible, not happenstance. Anyway, so what we're just seeing is the Bible is very transformational, as you well know, and we've had quite a good success and continue to grow in doing that. Again, individuals, families, public schools, youth camps. I was in Ukraine again in the early 2000s and sat down with a gentleman who was responsible for what's called the Pioneer Youth Camps. Now, the Pioneer Youth Camps is, think of the Boy Scouts, but it was for all kids, and they would go on, if you will, a holiday for 4 to 6 weeks in these camps. And so when the communists were trying to put this in, they thought, the Boy Scouts had a pretty good idea, but they pulled that God stuff out, and just threw it away and just substituted the state. When communism fell, they said, well, now what do we do? And so they invited us to help them bring the Bibles in and teach kids Bible during the summer youth camps. And so I asked the gentleman, I said, well, how many camps are we talking about? And he kind of leaned back in the chair and said, about 750. I'm like, and how many kids? And he said, about 1.5 million. Unfortunately, we didn't have the resources to be able to address that, but we did get, if you ever met Daryl, we had some 5 and 6, 7, 8 different youth camps, but it was extremely difficult to do that. But what I'm saying is there is that hunger for God's Word in that country, even though you might not think so, that the communism is a failed experiment and people just want out of it, and they're looking for alternative, and God is that answer. Orphanages are terrible. In Ukraine and Russia, there's what's called social orphans. What a social orphan is if the parents drink and if they fight and they get divorced, the state will come and just take the kids and put them in these orphanages. Well, what happens is it goes into their passports. Everybody has a passport there. And if you're stamped as orphanage, you're not a second-class citizen, you're a third-class citizen. And so what happens is that kids from a very young age, to age 15, stay in this, and they're treated very badly and have very poor, just everything's terrible, as far as the worst of the worst. At 15, you get kicked out. And so what happens is, typically the boys go into crime and the girls go into prostitution. And so we've been trying to help with that, but it's still a huge, huge problem. Excuse me. So here again, we show, the tagline, the Bible, we want everyone to get it, from old to young. What's interesting is about in the center slide, if you can see it from where you guys are sitting, here these kids are in a Russian youth camp. Can you see who that figure is in the bus right behind him above where that little blue banner? That's Lenin, okay? And so here Lenin is watching the kids reading the Bible, and they're really encouraged by that, and they just love the Bible stories and the hope that the Bible brings them. Incidentally, if you have any questions, go ahead and interrupt me or raise your hand, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. Here's an interesting example of the results of the Bible. This is in Bulgaria. So our distributor is a preacher at the Church of Christ, called Glyphada Church of Christ in Greece. And so his territory goes up into Albania and Bulgaria. Go home and try to find that on the map. But what he did is he's preaching for him one Sunday, and he went to a passage in Corinthians. He says, okay, everyone get out your Bible, and we want to go ahead and turn and read that passage. And so people look around at each other, get up, and start to walk to the back of the room. And he's thinking, what did I say? Did I insult them? Did something not translate correctly? They stop, go to a cupboard, open the cupboard up, and there's one Bible for the entire church. They just have one Bible. And our representative, his name is Demetrius. Demetrius said, we have Bibles. And when I come back, I will bring everyone their own personal Bible. So this is a picture of the church service after Demetrius came back, and everyone's holding up their personal Bibles that they're so happy to get. This is in Macedonia. I told you about the Macedonians. They wanted to have materials for their kids as well. And so this is our first distribution of Bibles. We had the kids out there, and they're just looking back and forth and back and forth. And we've had occasion after occasion, especially with the kids, that in camps or if you hand them out during recess or a break time, that instead of going out and playing, they just want to sit there and read. One thing you might not know, I did not know this about Ukraine and Russia, is they're a highly literate people. I think their literacy rate's probably 97, 98%. If for anything else, they love to read. They love literature. That's been ingrained into them since birth. Now, one other thing is, when we give someone a Bible, would you care to guess what the average time is for someone to read the entire Bible in Eastern Europe? 6 weeks. Here we try to do it 1 year and just sort of go through it laboriously and just kind of look at it a little bit at a time. And they just sit there and they just devour it because this is information that they've never seen before, and they're really excited about that. War comes to Ukraine, and it continues. This gentleman here, his name is Sasha Prokopchuk. And Sasha, before the war, has a TV program on a couple of channels. He's a preacher at Church of Christ in Kiev, and that's just some of the devastations there. Quite honestly, since the war started out, actually distribution's increased for us, that there's a lot of interest in spiritual materials. In fact, I just got back from our retreat. We had our 2026 planning retreat for what we want to do in Serbia, and one of the points that the Ukrainians came to us is they want waterproof Bibles, so the soldiers that are in the field can actually have a Bible and not be destroyed when they're in the mud and the slop and things like that in trenches. But he has a TV program, and the TV program actually has expanded and doing widely around the country. Previously to that, he would also have seminars down in Crimea on the Black Sea, and he would have training and try to train teachers and things, and was reported at one point in time there was hundreds of churches started and trained due to him and his work. This is what it looks like when a Russian drone or missile hits one of the apartment complexes. And we had found that, again, more and more people are interested in the Bible. And the reason our Bibles work is because if you're in a bomb shelter for 23 hours a day, and there's no light, there's no water, there's no electricity, and internet probably doesn't work, what else are you going to do to occupy your time? And there's a lot of prayer, a lot of reading, a lot of study, and a lot of time to think about things that matter when you're sitting in there hoping the next boom is not headed for you. So it's, if you will, please continue to pray. I mean, what can I say? War's terrible, and we just hope that it works out for the best, that hopefully there's some semblance of normalcy that can come back to the country. And quite honestly, it's hurting the Russians as well. I mean, as much as we hear about Ukraine, upwards of 1 million or more Russians have been killed or injured in this, and they're hurting as well. The reason you don't hear about it is you're not allowed to hear about it because the state media it holds that back. The other reason you don't hear about it is that the Russians have drafted people in the eastern part of Russia, which is typically poor, and they're paying them sometimes 1 and 2 times yearly salary just to go and become cannon fodder. And so what the families are doing, they're saying, we're willing to sacrifice our fathers and our sons to go fight because that will give us a living income as long as we can continue. It's really sad if you look at what's going on. And again, hopefully, prayerfully, something can be negotiated for a peace. And again, imagine that was your house. I mean, you got nothing left, and so we've been able to help these people out. What this is this shows refugees, and so what these are these refugees from Ukraine going into Poland. And one of the things we've started out and beginning to develop the program this year is there's a term you may or may not be familiar with. It's called diaspora. And what that essentially means is that refugees that are had to flee their country going somewhere else, that is the diaspora. It's people that are elsewhere in different countries. And so we have found that people have gone to Poland and let's see, Romania and Slovenia and places like that, and they want to study the Bible, and they're starting churches. And it's almost like, back in the early days when the early church was persecuted and spread out, we're seeing the same happen as well. So what we've done is the lady that's our country manager for Ukraine, who's in exile, if you will, right now, she is heading that up. We're finding people as far away from England and Finland. In fact, I'm going to England in 2 weeks from now. I'll try to work with the church there, and then on to France, and then some other places, just trying to figure out how can we support their spiritual needs while they're away. So again, here's some pictures. These are a couple of young girls. They're actually Ukrainian girls in Poland right now. And again, just loving on, having the Bible and biblical literature and Bible stories so they can develop a yearning and a heart for God, so that when they're old enough to make a decision, they'll know which way to turn. Incidentally, back on the refugees, they estimated there's 8 million refugees alone just from Ukraine right now, which is really draining that country. Here's another one. This is in a Ukrainian school where they have the small books that are out there. You can see that they have, and they actually use them in class. I mean, not like we do here. I mean, they're actually studying them, and because we're, again, results oriented, we want to make sure that it's just not a dusty book, but it's used. And quite honestly, right now in public schools, we're getting reorders because the books are worn out because they use them so much. Ultimately, this is what we're looking for. This is Paul, Sasha Prokopchuk, and he's baptizing a lady. This was in, excuse me, in Crimea, which is now in Soviet territory. That's the Black Sea behind her. In fact, when I was there, they said, well, that's where the Soviet Union tests their torpedoes, back in that area, back in there to use against the NATO people. And so when we were down there at the time, we had, they had, 24 people baptized just in one of his sessions. Excuse me. I had a terrible cough. Sorry. So, again, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for transformation. We're looking for and trying to encourage people to get the Bible, read it, take it into their heart, start churches, either small churches or whatever, in order to have their life changed and transformed for eternity. And you all have helped us do that, as well as others around the world. We're continuing to push forward in that direction. So what I'll do is, we've got a few minutes left. Are there any questions? Because I'll run through this pretty quickly, and I'll be talking more at the sermon today. And the topic is going to be ordinary individuals doing extraordinary, making an extraordinary difference. And so, each one of us can make a difference. And so this is our particular territory of working, whether it's here, whether it's locally, whether it's I see you guys support WBS, great ministry. Just whatever, just get involved. That's so important, and I encourage you to do that. I never expected to be on the pathway that I had, and it's been quite interesting, and I'm sure you've had interesting stories as well. So again, are there any questions right now? I think we have about 2 or 3 minutes. Yes, sir. For who? Putin's evil. Okay, and so he's ex-KGB, and from my observation, he and the Russian Orthodox Church are like this, and it's basically a business. And then my word's not his. I think he sees believers as useful idiots. That, if you want to believe that stuff, hey, that's fine, as long as I get my way and make more money. One thing that at least in the Western world, and people with secular humanism, somehow they think, the person with the most money in the graveyard is important. But, ultimately, we have the same fate. So I think he has no respect for him. Because at the time when I was there, the Russians, Orthodox Church, ran the cigarette concession, and I think some of the alcohol concession, as well as some of the others. They're all about this, about making money. That's their God, not our God.
Are they actively oppressing as they did back in the time?
Oh, absolutely, yes. So, for example, when the Russians invaded Ukraine, there was a number of preachers there, and we found out that the Minister of Education, I think, may have been a agent of the state, because he took the list out and gave it to the Russians. They came in, they went and looked for all those people, and if they found them, they put them in prison. So yes, they're actively working, because the only true and righteous religion is the Russian Orthodox Church. Anyone else is considered a heretic and a danger to the state.
So those areas that you had in the Donetsk region, are they essentially shut down?
It's all gone. So, for example, I'm familiar with the Ukrainian Bible Institute, and actually Dasha, my country manager, everyone was forced to flee back to Kyiv. And then when that was during the invasion of Donetsk, and then when the second invasion came along, Ukrainian Bible Institute has relocated into Poland, and that's why my country manager is in Vienna right now. Now, our warehouse is still in the Kiev area. Do you know what Bucha is? Do you know the significance of Bucha? That's where all the slaughter went on as far as, our warehouse is about 5 miles away from there. We're within howitzer range, and fortunately, and we had like $500,000 for the inventory in there because we'd stocked up, and we'd moved some of it out. But over time, we've restocked it, and the only damage we've had is when they shot one of the drones down, it fell into the roof of our building, but that's since been repaired. Was that the first bell or the second bell? First bell, okay. Good. Any other questions? Otherwise, you may get out early. All right, well, thank you for your attention, and I appreciate you listening. And if you want to see the material, it's up in here. It's an ongoing story, and it's really, really good. Okay, thank you. Oh.